Commander Threx floated alone in the cold darkness of space. His escape pod was silent, broken, and running out of power. A soft red light blinked above his head. The oxygen was almost gone. His chest rose and fell slowly as he tried not to panic. He had fought many battles in space, but nothing prepared him for this. Not for the silence, not for the cold, not for the feeling of being completely forgotten. Only 6 hours ago, he had been on board the Zilari battleship Farnuk, fighting against humans near the edge of the Thelos Void. The battle was brutal. Lasers cut through metal like fire through paper. Explosions shook the ship. Threx remembered the moment they saw the human warship appear on their radar. It was huge, more advanced than they expected. Still, the Zilari attacked. They always attacked. But this time, they were wrong. The human warship didn't fall back. It pushed forward, faster and smarter than anything Threx had ever seen. Within minutes, half of Farnuk was destroyed. Threx gave the order to abandon ship. He ran to the escape bay. His pod launched just in time, but something was wrong. He heard static in his ear. No one responded to his calls. Then the truth hit him. His own fleet had jumped to warp and left him behind. At first, Threx thought it was a mistake. Maybe they didn't know his pod had survived. Maybe they were planning to return. But as the hours passed and the darkness stayed the same, he knew. They had left him to die. The great Zilari commander, forgotten like space trash. He tried to stay calm. He tried to find a signal. He sent out distress beacons. Nothing came back. Just static. Just silence. His fingers shook as he reached for the emergency rations. One small bottle of water, one energy bar. That was all. Maybe one day of life left. Then, nothing. As his mind wandered, he thought about the humans. He had been taught they were dangerous, wild, and emotional. Weak, but clever. But what he saw on that battlefield, how they'd fought, how they didn't back down, made him wonder. Maybe the stories were wrong. Maybe the humans were stronger than the Zilari thought. He closed his eyes, just for a moment. He imagined being back on his ship, hearing the engine hum, feeling the floor under his boots. Then, a soft sound broke through the silence. A distant beeping. Threx's eyes opened wide. He checked the scanner. Something was approaching. His heart raced. Was it the humans? Were they back to finish the job? Or was it something else? The pod's screen lit up with a strange signal. Large, fast, and coming straight toward him. He stared at it, frozen. The shape became clearer. It wasn't a rock. It wasn't debris. It was a ship. Massive. Clean lines. Bright lights along the sides. It moved with silent power. Then he saw the symbol. A blue and white flag. A sharp steel star at the center. A human warship. Threx's breath caught in his throat. He pressed back into the seat, unsure what to do. His escape pod had no weapons, no shields. He was helpless. The human ship stopped a short distance away. A hatch opened at the bottom. A soft beam of light reached out, locking onto his pod. Then, with a slow pull, the pod began to move. It was being dragged toward the ship. Inside the pod, alarms buzzed. Pressure levels shifted. Lights blinked wildly. Threx grabbed his seat as the pod entered a wide hangar bay. The doors behind him closed with a loud thud. Everything went quiet. He waited. The air hissed. The pod door opened. No one came in. Cautiously, Threx stepped out. His boots touched the metal floor. It was smooth, polished, and strangely warm. He looked around. The hangar was empty, but cameras followed his every move. A voice came from above. Calm. Deep. Commander Threx, you are safe. For now. He froze. How did they know his name? We picked up your signal, the voice continued. We don't leave people to die. Even enemies. Threx didn't understand. Why save him? What did the humans want? Was this a trap? But one thing was clear. He was no longer alone in the void. And whatever came next would change everything. Behind him, the pod door shut. Ahead, a door opened. And so, the enemy stepped into the heart of the human warship. Commander Threx stepped slowly through the open doorway. The hallway was quiet, bright, and too clean. He had never seen such perfect order, not even on the finest Zilari ships. The metal walls seemed alive, humming softly with power. Lights blinked gently above him, guiding his steps like he was being watched. He knew he was. Every move he made was likely being tracked. He was deep inside a human warship, a place no Zilari had ever entered and lived to tell about it. He walked carefully, his claws clicking against the smooth floor. His body was still weak, still shaken from being in the pod for so long. But his mind stayed sharp. He was a commander. He would not show fear, even now. Suddenly, the wall ahead opened, and two human soldiers stepped out. They wore dark armor and helmets that covered their faces. They didn't speak. One of them motioned with a hand. "Follow." Threx obeyed. He was in no position to fight. They led him through long corridors filled with strange symbols and silent machines. He passed rooms with large screens showing space maps and battle simulations. He even saw human engineers working together, calm, focused, and fast. These weren't the wild creatures the Zilari had described. These were warriors with discipline. Finally, the soldiers stopped at a tall door. It slid open with a hiss. Inside was a room with a large table in the center and a single figure standing at the far end. A human, tall and calm, with silver streaks in his hair and sharp eyes that seemed to see everything. "Commander Threx," the man said, his voice low but strong. "I'm Captain Hale of the Warship Justice." Threx stood still. The captain didn't look angry. He didn't look afraid. He looked curious. "You were left behind," Hale said. "Why?" Threx hesitated. He didn't want to admit the truth, that his own fleet had left him to die, that he was worthless to them now. "I was injured," Threx said. "My pod failed. They didn't see me." Captain Hale stared at him for a long moment. "That's not true," he said softly. "We saw the fleet's jump logs. They had your location. They just didn't care." Threx said nothing. "You're not our prisoner," Hale continued. "Not yet, but you are in our hands. So I want to know something. Why are the Zilari pushing war again? Why break the treaty?" Threx looked away. "I follow orders. I don't ask questions." Captain Hale walked around the table. "Your people destroyed 2 neutral colonies last week. Civilian colonies. You know what that means." Threx's eyes narrowed. "They told us those planets were weapons bases." "They lied," Hale said. "And now the galaxy thinks the Zilari are monsters. We're trying to stop this war before it burns everything." Threx shook his head. "You expect me to believe humans care about peace." The captain leaned forward. "You're alive because we do. If you were one of ours, we'd risk a whole ship to bring you home. Your people left you. We didn't." That hit Threx harder than any weapon. It was true. The humans had saved him, fed him, let him breathe their air. And now, they were asking questions, not giving orders. Suddenly, the lights in the room flickered. A red alarm flashed on the wall. Hale turned to a screen. A voice spoke quickly. "Unknown signal approaching. Fast. Not one of ours." Threx stepped forward. "Let me see it." The captain gave a quick nod. The screen showed a ship moving through the void. Fast and aggressive. Zilari markings. "They're coming back," Threx whispered. "Why?" The captain didn't answer. Instead, he looked Threx in the eye. "Maybe they're not just here to check on the battlefield. Maybe they're here to clean up. To erase any trace of what they did, including you." Threx's heart pounded. He realized something terrifying. The Zilari weren't just leaving him behind. They were coming to finish the job. Captain Hale turned away. "Prepare the crew. Ready the defenses." The soldiers moved quickly. Lights turned red. The warship woke up like a giant beast opening its eyes. Threx stood in the middle of it all, surrounded by enemies who had shown him mercy, and facing his own people who now wanted him dead. He didn't know who to trust anymore. But he knew one thing. Something bigger was coming, and this was only the beginning. The alarms echoed through the long steel halls of the human warship Justice. Red lights flashed above every door, and the soft hum of the engines turned into a loud, deep roar. The crew moved fast. No one shouted. No one panicked. Every person knew their job and did it. Commander Threx watched in silence, standing in the middle of it all, still not sure if he was a guest or a prisoner. Captain Hale stood near the command table, eyes locked on the large screen showing the Zilari warship speeding toward them. It was sleek, dark, and built for destruction. But this time, it wasn't alone. 2 more blips appeared behind it, support cruisers. Threx's heart sank. This wasn't a scout team. It was a kill squad. "They know I'm alive," Threx said, his voice low. Captain Hale glanced at him. "Yes, and they don't want you talking." Threx stepped closer to the screen. His sharp eyes scanned the symbols. He recognized the lid ship. It belonged to High Warlord Karvik, his old rival. Ruthless, ambitious, a war hero with no loyalty to anyone but himself. "If Karvik is leading," Threx said slowly, "he's not just coming to destroy this ship. He wants to send a message." "What kind of message?" Hale asked. "That no Zilari is allowed to fail. That no Zilari is allowed to speak with the enemy and live." The captain nodded, calm but tense. "Then we hold the line." Threx looked at him, confused. "You're going to fight them. 3 Zilari warships. You're outgunned." Hale gave a thin smile. "Maybe. But humans don't run from bullies." Before Threx could reply, the ship shook gently, just a warning of what was coming. The enemy had entered firing range. "Shields up," Hale ordered. "Charge forward cannons." The crew jumped into action. Large guns rose from the ship's sides. Shields shimmered across the windows. The lights dimmed to combat mode. Threx had seen many battles. He had commanded fleets, but never had he seen a ship prepare like this. Calm, sharp, focused. There was no fear here, only fire. "Why are you doing this?" Threx asked, watching as the humans prepared to risk everything. "Because we don't leave our own behind," Hale said. "And right now, you're standing on our deck." The words hit Threx like a punch. He didn't understand this kind of loyalty. His own people had tossed him away. Yet here stood his enemy, ready to die to protect him. The first blast hit. The ship rocked, but the shields held. Lights flickered, and warning sounds rang out, but the crew stayed steady. "Return fire," Hale said. A powerful beam shot from the Justice. It hit the lead Zilari cruiser, tearing into its armor. Threx's eyes widened. He hadn't expected the humans to hit that hard. "They've upgraded," he muttered. "This isn't the same tech from 5 years ago." Hale didn't look at him. "We've been busy." Outside, space lit up with fire and metal. Lasers, plasma shots, and missiles flew between ships. One Zilari cruiser broke formation, trying to flank the Justice, but the human warship rolled sideways and unleashed a burst of missiles that forced the enemy to fall back. Threx was amazed. The Justice was dancing between giants and landing every strike. But then a sharp alarm screamed. "Enemy boarding pods incoming." A crew member shouted. "They're trying to board." Hale's eyes darkened. "Let them try." Threx turned to him. "You'll fight them face to face." Hale nodded. "We're ready for that too." More red lights blinked. Metal doors sealed shut across the ship. Defense teams rushed into position. The humans weren't just good in space. They were ready to fight in close quarters, too. One of the crew handed Threx a small weapon. He stared at it. "You're either with us," the crewman said, "or you get out of the way." Threx held the weapon tight. For the first time in his life, he was being trusted by an enemy and hunted by his own people. He didn't answer. But when the enemy pods crashed into the hull and the air filled with smoke and gunfire, Threx didn't run. He raised the weapon and fought beside the humans, because in that moment he realized he wasn't just fighting for survival. He was fighting for something he never had before: honor. Smoke filled the narrow halls of the Justice as the enemy broke through the outer hull. The Zilari boarding teams charged in, weapons ready, their battle cries loud and sharp. But they weren't expecting what waited inside. Human soldiers stood their ground like steel walls. They didn't scream. They didn't panic. They moved together, fast and sharp, covering each other as they fired back. Commander Threx stayed behind a steel column, his borrowed human blaster in hand. The heat of battle burned in his chest, but not from fear, from something new. A strange sense of duty, not to the Zilari, but to the humans who had saved him. Threx leaned out and fired. One Zilari soldier fell. Another turned toward him, surprised. Threx was fighting his own kind. He didn't care. The hallway shook as another explosion hit the side of the ship. Pieces of the ceiling dropped. Sparks flew. A human soldier beside Threx pulled him back just before a support beam crashed down. "You still breathing?" the soldier asked, shouting over the noise. Threx nodded. "For now. We hold this line," the soldier said, "no matter what." They moved forward together, clearing the hallway. Human teams were already ahead, forcing the enemy back with grenades and stun rifles. But the Zilari kept coming. They were trained for this. Ruthless, cold, fast. Threx ducked behind cover and spotted a Zilari officer giving orders ahead. He recognized the markings. The Elite Guard. These weren't random soldiers. They were hand-picked killers, sent not just to win, but to erase him. They sent the Death Squad. Threx whispered. "What?" the human soldier asked. "They're not here to take this ship," Threx said. "They're here for me." He knew then Karvik had made the order himself. He wanted Threx silenced. Not captured, not rescued. Silenced. Across the room, a blast of energy knocked two humans to the floor. Threx saw the elite Zilari officer raising his weapon again. Without thinking, Threx jumped out, fired 3 times. One shot hit the officer in the chest. He fell. The rest of the Zilari hesitated. For just a second, their lines cracked. "Push now," a human shouted. The humans surged forward, taking control of the hallway. The enemy fell back. Alarms faded as the last boarding pod was sealed and thrown out into space. Silence followed. Smoke drifted through the air. The humans stood still, weapons ready. But the fight was over. For now. Captain Hale arrived minutes later, boots heavy on the scorched floor. "You all right?" he asked Threx. Threx nodded, chest rising fast. His armor was scratched, his blaster nearly empty. But he was alive. "I fought them," Threx said, almost surprised by his own words. "I fought my own." Hale looked him in the eye. "That wasn't your own. Not anymore." Threx didn't answer. He couldn't. The words were true. The crew began to clean up. Injured were carried to med bays. Engineers started fixing broken walls and doors. Everyone moved with purpose. They had survived the attack. But Hale's face remained tense. He walked with Threx to the strategy room, where maps and ship data lit up the walls. "This was just the start," Hale said. "Karvik won't stop. He'll come himself next time." Threx stepped closer to the screen. "Then we stop waiting. We take the fight to him." Hale raised an eyebrow. "You're suggesting we strike first?" Threx nodded. "I know his patterns, his codes, where he hides. You gave me a chance when no one else would. Let me give you something back. Hale studied him for a long moment. You sure about this? Helping us means turning your back on your whole species. They already turned their back on me, Threx said. Now I turn mine on them. Hale slowly extended his hand. Threx looked at it for a second, then shook it. A Zilari warrior and a human captain, fighting side by side. Something the galaxy had never seen. But it was only the beginning. Because now, it was time to hunt the hunter. Captain Hale stood in front of the large star map, his eyes focused on the red blinking dots. Each dot was a Zilari fleet. The one at the center belonged to Warlord Karvik, the very warship that had left Commander Threx to die, and now wanted him erased. Threx stepped closer to the map, pointing to a system deep in a dead zone. Here, Karvik hides in the Veil sector. It's a silent zone. No signals, no patrols. That's where he waits, repairs, and builds strength. But there's a back way in. A path only old commanders like me know. Hale looked at him. And what's waiting at the end of that path? Death, Threx said flatly. Unless we're smarter than him. The crew on Justice had already started preparations. The ship was damaged, but still powerful. Drones repaired the outer hull. Engineers checked weapons and shields. In the center of it all, humans worked with calm fire in their eyes. And now, a Zilari stood among them, not as an enemy, but as one of them. Some crew members still didn't trust Threx. He saw it in their eyes. Whispers followed him through the halls. But no one stopped him. Not after he bled beside them. Not after he saved lives during the boarding. Still, the decision to go after Karvik wasn't easy. You sure this isn't a trap? Hale asked again as the Justice approached the Veil sector. Threx gave a sharp nod. If it is, then I'll face it with you. I'm not running anymore. As they entered the silent zone, everything grew quiet. No signals, no noise, just dark space. The Justice cut its main engines and drifted forward slowly. It felt like a ghost ship gliding through the void. Suddenly, a warning blinked. Sensor ping, said one officer. Very faint. Something's watching us. Threx moved to the screen. He stared at the shadow ahead. That's him. He's cloaked. Waiting. Hale turned to his crew. Silent run. All power to stealth mode. Prepare for counterstrike. The Justice dropped low behind a dead moon, hiding in its shadow. Threx's heart pounded. It was strange. All his life, he'd fought against humans. Now he was about to help them strike the most feared warlord in Zilari space. Are you ready for this? Hale asked. No, Threx said honestly. But I'd rather die fighting with you than live as a coward serving him. The plan was simple but dangerous. The Justice would fire an EMP missile to knock out the enemy ship's sensors, just for a few seconds. In that moment, they would strike with full force. But timing had to be perfect. The countdown began. 3, 2, 1. The EMP shot forward, silent, invisible. It hit. The enemy ship's lights blinked out. Fire all weapons, Hale shouted. The Justice roared to life. Missiles, lasers, and rail cannons lit up the dark. The first volley struck deep into Karvik's warship. Fire and debris flew into space, but it wasn't enough. The enemy ship powered back on, faster than expected. They've improved their systems, Threx warned. This will be close. Karvik's ship returned fire. The Justice shook hard. Alarms blared. Shields holding at 40%. A crew member shouted. Keep firing, Hale ordered. The two warships circled each other like angry beasts in the dark, trading blows. Metal tore. Fire rained across the stars. Threx looked at the chaos and made a decision. He turned to Hale. I need to go, he said. Get me on that ship. Hale stared at him. You're crazy. I know, Threx said. But I know Karvik. I know how to get to him. And if I can end him, this all ends. There was silence. Then Hale gave a sharp nod. "Take a team. Make it count." Threx loaded into a small stealth pod with 2 human soldiers. As they launched toward the burning enemy ship, Threx felt no fear, only purpose. The war wasn't just about power anymore. It was about truth. And the truth was, he was no longer Zilari. He was something more. And tonight, he would prove it. The small stealth pod shot through the debris field like a silent arrow. Enemy fire lit up the dark space all around them, but the pod was too small to track. Inside, Threx sat tight with 2 human soldiers, Rais and Malik, both armed and focused. As the pod attached to the outer hull of Karvik's warship, Threx took a deep breath. "Once we're in, stay close. I know the way to the command bridge." Rais nodded. "We cover you. You lead." A small charge opened the outer hatch. The 3 slipped inside. The air was thick and hot. Emergency lights blinked red. The ship was already damaged badly by the Justice's attack, but not enough. They moved through the shadows, silent as ghosts. Threx's mind raced. He had trained on this ship, slept in these halls, given orders here. Now he was hunting the same warlord he once served. 2 Zilari soldiers appeared around a corner. Threx raised his hand, a silent signal. Rais and Malik moved fast, 2 shots, clean and quiet. The way was clear. Threx led them deeper, past storage bays and sealed labs. He knew where Karvik would be now. In the command chamber, surrounded by guards. As they neared the main lift, a lab alarm sounded. "They know we're here," Rais said. Threx cursed under his breath. "No more hiding. We move fast." The lift opened. 2 elite guards waited with plasma spears. Rais fired. Malik threw a stun charge. Threx rushed forward and slammed 1 guard into the wall, disarming him with a brutal twist. The second collapsed under Malik's shot. They stepped into the lift. Threx slammed the button. The lift shook as it rose. Gunfire echoed below. When the doors opened again, it was like entering a nightmare. The command chamber was burning. Sparks flew from shattered consoles. And there, in the center, Warlord Karvik, tall and armored, his red eyes glowing with rage. He turned slowly. "You," he said, voice like thunder. "I should have killed you myself." Threx stepped forward. "You tried. Now I return the favor." Karvik laughed. "You think these creatures will help you win? They already have," Threx said. Karvik raised his sword. "Then die with them." The fight began. Karvik moved like a monster, striking fast. His blade clashed with Threx's stolen one. Rais and Malik circled, firing shots that barely slowed the warlord down. Threx fought hard, his arms burning. Every move was life or death. He dodged, blocked, countered, but Karvik was strong. Too strong. Karvik punched Threx hard. He flew into a console, gasping. "You were my best," Karvik said. "And now, my greatest failure." Threx coughed, blood in his mouth. "No, I'm your end." Suddenly, Rais jumped on Karvik's back, stabbing deep. Malik fired a blast into Karvik's side. The warlord roared in pain and threw Rais off. Threx got to his feet, grabbed a broken energy blade, and charged. With one last strike, he drove the blade deep into Karvik's chest. The warlord froze, then fell. The room fell silent. Rais groaned from the floor. Malik helped him up. All 3 looked down at the fallen warlord. "It's done," Threx said. But then, an alarm blared. A voice spoke in Zilari code. "What's it saying?" Malik asked. Threx's face darkened. A self-destruct. Karvik triggered it with his last breath. "How long?" Rais asked. 2 minutes. They ran. The lift was too slow. They used the emergency ladders, climbing through smoke and fire. The ship shook around them. Explosions tore through walls. Finally, they'd reached the pod. Rise jumped in. Malik followed. Threx paused. He looked back at the ship, the Empire, the past, and then he let it go. He jumped in, and the pod launched. Behind them, the warship exploded in a ball of fire. The shockwave hit the pod, but they held on. From the Justice, Hale watched the explosion on the screen. He waited, breath tight. Then, signal detected. They made it, the crew said. Cheers erupted. Hale smiled. The pod was pulled in. The bay doors closed. Threx stepped out, armor scorched, face dirty, but eyes alive. You did it, Hale said. Threx nodded. We did. The enemy ship was gone. The warlord was dead. But as the crew celebrated, something strange blinked on the radar. A new signal. Unknown. Vague. And it was heading straight for them. The war wasn't over. It had only changed. The crew of the Justice stood frozen as the new signal grew stronger on the radar. It was massive, bigger than Karvek's warship. The red lights on the screen flashed faster and faster. Captain Hale's voice was calm, but firm. Shields up. Prepare for contact. Everyone rushed to battle stations. Threx stood beside Hale, breathing hard. He had just helped kill the most feared warlord in Zilari space. But whatever was coming now, it was worse. It's not Zilari tech, said Reyes, scanning the signal. It's something else. The screen showed a shape rising from the shadows of the Veil sector. It was like nothing they had seen before. Smooth metal. No windows. No visible weapons. Just a long, silent ship, moving straight toward them like a ghost. Try hailing it, Hale ordered. The communications officer sent a signal. No answer. Again. Still nothing. Then, suddenly, everything on the Justice went dark. Lights off. Screens dead. Engines silent. EMP blast? Malik asked. No, Threx said slowly. This is a control override. The strange ship floated closer. And then, without warning, every screen lit up again, showing a single symbol. Not Zilari. Not human. Unknown. Then a voice came through the ship's speakers. Cold. Robotic. Powerful. Your war is over. Stand down. We are coming. The crew looked at each other, shocked. Threx stepped forward. Who are you? No answer. Then the symbol vanished. The ship turned and vanished into the void as suddenly as it came. The lights on the Justice returned. Engines powered back on. Silence filled the bridge. What just happened? Reyes whispered. I don't know, Hale said, but it wasn't a rescue. That was a warning. Threx clenched his jaw. This war, it was never just between us and the Zilari. There's something else out there. Something older. Watching. The mood on the ship turned heavy. Celebrations were gone. Victory now felt small. Later, in the briefing room, Hale and Threx met with the senior officers. We need answers, Hale said. And we need to prepare. Whatever that was, it shut down our systems like we were nothing. Threx nodded. It knew exactly where to find us. It waited until we were weak. Then showed itself. Do you think Karvek knew? Reyes asked. Threx thought for a moment. Maybe. Maybe that's why he grew so cruel, because he feared what was coming. The crew began scanning the Veil sector, looking for traces. But the strange ship had vanished without a signal, without a trail. It was like it had never been there at all. 3 days passed. Repairs continued. The Justice became a symbol of survival across human space. News of Karvek's death spread fast. For the first time in years, colonies began to hope. But Hale didn't rest. He gathered the best minds. Threx helped translate old Zilari records. And what they found chilled them. Ancient files spoke of a race lost to time, machines without soul, intelligence born in silence, observers of war, judges of species, and sometimes executioners. Their name was erased from memory, but one thing was clear. They only appeared when a galaxy was at its most violent. They watch wars, Hale said quietly, reading the last line. And then, they decide who gets to live. The crew knew now, they hadn't won peace. They had earned attention. But Threx stood tall, beside the humans who once would have been his enemies. "We'll be ready," he said. "They thought they could scare us, but they don't know what we've become." Hale looked at him and smiled. "No, they don't." The camera on the Justice's bridge recorded a message. It was sent across human space, and even deeper, to allies, to enemies, to anyone who might be listening. "We were left to die in the void," Hale said. "But we stood, together, human, alien, all who choose life over fear. If you hear this, know this. We are not done, and we are not afraid." The stars outside burned bright. Somewhere in the darkness, something listened, and humanity waited, ready for whatever came next. Because this time, the galaxy wouldn't face them alone. It would face them together. And they would not be left to die ever again. They would fight. And this time, everyone would know exactly who the humans were. The last ones standing.